for joining us this evening for the news at 6. I'm Janine Samuels.
And I'm Bill Fitzgerald. We're following two major stories tonight. More snow is coming to Central Virginia. Our chief meteorologist, Zach Daniel, will tell us how much could fall and when.
But first, we have complete coverage of the historic water crisis affecting tens of thousands of people in the Richmond metro area. We start with our Joy Fultz, who has the latest about what has been an encouraging day across our viewing area. I know I finally have water, so we're finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, Joy.
Janine, to that point, the main point of today's latest update is that all Richmonders should have running water at this point. Mayor Avula says that all of the zones are fully pressurized and that he's hoping the boil water advisory can be lifted by Saturday at the latest.
So I'll start with the great news, which is that our system now is fully pressurized in all 9 zones.
It's an announcement that comes almost 4 days after a winter storm led to a malfunction at Richmond's water treatment plant, leaving thousands of Central Virginians without running water.
The reservoir is above 18 feet, so we have a full reservoir.
Mayor Avula says though water pressure in your home may still be low, the city will continue to be on a boil water advisory as they begin the testing process.
The first step is now that we're fully pressurized, we will test multiple samples across the system. Those have to be sent to the lab, looked at the lab, and then 16 hours, if that test is that 16 hours after that, we do a second round of samples.
Avula says the first test was done Thursday morning and that the boil water advisory can be lifted once they have 2 consecutive negative tests.
If all goes well, we should be able to do that tomorrow or early Saturday. So really hoping for good results here, knowing that this is, as I said yesterday, a very low probability occurrence that we have contamination.
He also described how they are prepping for the upcoming winter weather this weekend.
Testing battery backups, making sure that the generators are working, increasing the staffing and surveillance roles at the plant during the weather event. We've worked with Dominion. They are on high alert, and we'll make sure they're monitoring power to us throughout. We've had continued commitment from our regional partners to have additional staff, mechanics, technicians, electricians, engineering functions on standby. And then, as I said, increasing the frequency of our site inspections.
Avula also added that there will be a schedule posted with those testing updates. So as soon as we get that, we will have it posted on WTVR.com. That's also where you can find the full presser. For CBS 6 News, I'm Joy Fultz.
All right, thank you, Joy. And the other big story, of course, the winter weather, another round of which is coming this weekend. But for now, we had some sunshine today, although a little crisp again.
Yes, sunshine, but still cold. And that's where we're going to find Zach outside, of course. How you doing out there, Zach?
I'm fine. I'm kind of getting used to it, to be honest. Each afternoon, it's kind of the same thing. We make it into the low and mid 30s with some sunshine, and today a little bit more wind, but at this point, I think we've all kind of figured out maybe how to get through the day as comfortably as possible. Let me show you what we've got outside at the moment. It's 33 degrees, and you got quite a few locations that are already down below freezing. It's 30 in Chester, 27 up in Louisa. Skies around here are clear. Back to the west, not much going on just yet until you get to about the Mississippi River. Then we get into the snow through Arkansas and Oklahoma and North Texas. We have an upper level low right along the New Mexico-Texas line. The surface low is developing. That is what we're going to be tracking, and that is going to hold the key to where that band of snow sets up here across Central Virginia. Still some uncertainty as to where that's actually going to bring the heaviest snowfall. Winter storm warnings from Texas and Oklahoma all the way over into the Carolinas and Virginia. It's a winter storm warning here in pink. The area there for western Henrico, City of Richmond, and western Chesterfield is a winter storm watch. It's essentially undecided, at least at this point, whether it's going to be a warning or an advisory. That will change tonight or early tomorrow morning. Here's a look at your forecast for the rest of tonight. Clear skies and really cold, 21 by 11 o'clock. We'll be down in the teens again by tomorrow morning. I'll show you what I'm thinking in terms of snowfall accumulation Friday night and early Saturday. That's coming up.
Thank you, Zach. We're now getting a new look at the extent of the flooding inside the water treatment plant after Monday's power outage.
The video was initially posted on Facebook by a person who tells us they don't want to be identified and was later reposted by the Instagram account 804 Hood News. Now, in this 12-second long clip, water is seen gushing into the basement of the plant, completely covering pipes and other critical equipment. The water level gets so high, as you can see, it reaches the electrical boxes on the wall. The city of Richmond has confirmed to CBS 6 that the video is legitimate.
Now, you can see it is the same room from this different video, which was sent to us by a city spokesperson. This footage was recorded Wednesday after the floodwater had all been pumped out of the room.
As we've previously reported, the city says the flooding occurred after the power outage caused systems failures that led to the filter gallery valves getting stuck. That's what caused water production to be stopped altogether.
And meanwhile, we're continuing to question city and DPU leaders about what led to the crisis and what systems were in place to prevent them.
Our Tyler Lane is looking into why a backup of power source wasn't used. But first, our Melissa Hippolyte breaks down what happened when the plant lost power earlier this week and what led to the generators not being used at all. Melissa.
Yeah, we were at the conference earlier today where we asked him why a generator didn't take over when the power went out. He didn't have any answers for us at first, but we did get some answers later in the day.
We hope to ask DPU head April Bingham about what exactly happened with the generator at Richmond's water treatment plant Monday, but she did not attend Thursday's news conference. So we asked Mayor Danny Avula, who just took office 10 days ago.
I wanted to ask you about the generators at the water treatment plant. My understanding from Julian is that those have to be manually powered on. So what I'm trying to figure out is, why was the system designed that way? When were those powered on by somebody? Was there a delay in those being powered on that could have led to this catastrophe that we're now experiencing? And was anybody actually at the plant when this all went down to manually turn those on?
Yeah. I've heard some discussion about this, and again, I'm just as interested in figuring out exactly what the sequence of events is.
Have you been able to ask Ms. Bingham about it? I mean, has she shared any of that information with you yet?
Not with me.
A few hours later, the mayor followed up, saying he had gotten some answers for us. Here's what we learned. We are hearing different things about when the power went out at the Richmond water treatment plant Monday morning. Dominion Energy says they received a report about the power being out at 6:50 a.m. Mayor Avula told us the power went out at 5:50 a.m. When the power went out, the plant automatically switched to a second power source provided by Dominion Energy, but the transfer failed.
That was the component failure that sort of started the cascade.
So a plant electrician was called in to help.
Don't know exactly what time they got there.
The electrician made the decision to manually try to switch over to the secondary Dominion power source as opposed to manually switching to a backup generator.
The electrician made the determination we didn't need to activate the generators because he manually switched to the second Dominion feed.
He ultimately did restore power a little after 7:30 a.m. by manually switching to the secondary Dominion power source. But when that happened, the IT system, which runs the plant, did not reconnect to servers after a reboot.
That disconnect to the servers was part of the issue, or was really one of the main issues here.
The IT system had backup battery power, but it went offline before power was fully restored.
Why wasn't that connected to a backup generator, to keep, since that is such a critical piece of this whole infrastructure?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, I think that was happening in real time as the electrician was trying to assess the manual switch over to the second power source. And in that window, we ended up losing power on the UPS.
A lot of reliance on a person as opposed to like automatics going into place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, an engineer with 20 years of experience
water systems for cities and counties told me he felt like when that automatic switch to the secondary Dominion energy power source did not work, that the generator should have automatically switched on. So what's the process that should be followed in the event of a power outage? My colleague Tyler Lane has that information, and he questions leaders about how the DPU director is handling this crisis. Tyler?
Well, Melissa, just like your source is telling you, I'm also hearing that these backup systems are in place to prevent a crisis like this. And there are multiple levels within that chain of events that are supposed to kick in. So we're questioning the director's explanation that a power outage is just the sole culprit here.
On Wednesday, the head of Richmond's Department of Public Utilities, April Bingham, blamed a region-wide water crisis on a power outage.
I think this incident here was simply caused by an outage to the plant.
But in the event of an outage, there are multiple layers of backup protection that should keep the system running. According to information provided in a briefing to the Virginia Department of Health's Drinking Water Director, Dwayne Roadcap, if a main Dominion power source fails, the facility can rely on a generator and 3 backup batteries. But 2 of the city's backup batteries are out of service, and even if every backup system fails, Roadcap says there's supposed to be a procedure for staff to manually turn off the valves. But according to his briefing, staff were not aware that they needed to do that until after the flooding happened. Roadcap says they've now been informed of the proper process. Now, after the city was cited by federal regulators in 2022 for corroding equipment and lacking emergency response plans, Bingham sent them a letter just last week pointing to DPU's backup systems capabilities.
So yesterday, DPU Director April Bingham said that this crisis was caused by a simple weather-related power outage. But as you know, power outages happen all across the country all the time, and whole cities don't completely lose their water. And this is why we have redundancy systems in place, right? And so last week, April sent a letter to the EPA and said redundancy is a key feature of our system, ensuring that critical services remain uninterrupted despite the temporary unavailability of certain assets. A couple days later, that whole system failed, and now we were in a crisis. What is your reaction to that, and do you stand by the fact that this is just a simple weather outage issue?
So the weather clearly caused the primary issue. The thing I do understand is that the UPS battery backup, and I'm not exactly sure what that stands for, but the battery backup system didn't last as long as it needed to. And so we did have a failure of that battery backup that led to the valves in the system not opening up and water backing up into the plant. And I agree, I think at least what I heard about that statement, that redundancy is a key feature. And in this particular case, the power outage and then the failure of our battery backup system have led to the situation that we're at.
He promised a rigorous review to find out what went wrong.
But as you do that, if you find that there are leadership or management failures, personnel failures, they didn't do what they were supposed to do, are you going to hold those people accountable?
That's the job, right? We need to make sure that we've got the right protocols in place, the right people in place, the right systems in place to provide the basic services that our city needs. So absolutely.
And as for those 2 backup batteries that I mentioned are out of service, it is not yet clear whether they were out of service before or after the storm hit and we had this crisis. But of course, we're working to find out. In Richmond, I'm Tyler Lane for CBS 6 News.
Thank you, Tyler. As thousands remain under a boil water advisory, several of you have reached out about what exactly we all need to do. Right after the break, I'll go over the guidelines from the Department of Health on what to do about, say, washing your dishes or even taking a shower.
I want to give you a voice, and it's simple. Just call or email me.
Richmond, Henrico, and Goochland counties remain under a boil water advisory, as do those in Hanover County east of I-95.
So let's take a look at the precautions the Virginia Health Department says you should be taking. The Virginia Department of Health recommends bringing water to a rolling boil for at least 1 minute. Let it cool, and that's the water you'll use to drink, to soak produce, and brush your teeth. If you have an automatic ice maker, throw out the ice and sanitize the parts you can remove. Now, you can use regular tap water to take a shower. Just be careful not to consume any. You can also still wash your hands and clothes with warm tap water. You can cook with regular tap water, again, as long as it boils for at least 1 minute. You can wash your dishes in your dishwasher if it has a high heat setting that's at least 150 degrees, or a sanitize cycle. If you don't, you can wash and rinse your dishes with warm tap water, then let them soak in the full sink with a tablespoon of household bleach. Let them air dry completely. Or you may just opt for paper plates and plastic utensils. As far as pets, the VDH says you can give them the water you boiled, but check with your vet to see if that's even necessary. But what if you don't have power? The VDH says you can sanitize water by adding 8 drops of bleach, a 1/4 teaspoon to a gallon of tap water. Stir and let it sit for 30 minutes. If the water you're using is cloudy, double the amount of bleach to a 1/2 teaspoon. And we've posted all these tips to our website, WTVR.com, and included a link to all of the VDH's frequently asked questions. There's even one that asks, how do I boil water on a stovetop?